Right, hello. Uh, as you can see, I don't appear to be outside. That's because I'm not. Um, all I can say is that England is upholding its reputation as the rain capital of the world, and it's almost dark out when it shouldn't be. It's very, very wet and windy outside. There are some weather warnings, etc. So I'm going to do the first live stream from home that I've done in so long, and I feel nervous. And hi, Dragon. Yeah, I feel really nervous. Yeah, hello, Harry. Oh, love you two people. Thank you. Okay, so I want to speak about something somewhat personal, although, sadly, I feel that you will all identify if it's the case. And my notes are on my other phone, which is down here, as it were, because hashtag life is irritating, and I can't use my computer at the moment. Tertian influence, because I feel it in my bones, like really a lot. Oh, I would just warn anybody unfamiliar. So the software I'm using means that your comments are integrated with the excuse me, with the video right now. So as it becomes processed, the comments will stay there, and I don't know that I can remove them after. So do keep it charming, chaps, etc. I'm about to freshen floor. Buckle up, kid. I'll get to the matter at hand. Maybe, I like to try to stay Jesus focused, as it were, and yeah, I've not had. Okay. Oh, thank you, Jesus. This time last year, it appears to me, thank you, that I had everything that I wanted, and all the things I didn't realise I needed. And Satan is just a little tinker, and I've lost so many people. Like, it's even worse when they're still alive. That doesn't even make sense. But I've lost a lot of people to death, and then I've lost some people to, I don't even know what it is, my charm. So you're all lovely. I'm going to stop reading the comments a minute, because I've got to get okie dokie. If I cry, obviously we'll just put it down to oh, here she goes again. But I hope I don't, because I haven't got waterproof mascara on. Either way, I'm going to talk about trauma. It's not as depressing as it sounds, because there are solutions to all of these things. But if I love you people. Okay. Satan doesn't want me to remember that most of the time. Right. Even if you have never been in an accident, even if you've never had your life threatened, or been threatened to be raped, maybe, I don't know if you go to speaker's corner, or been in any serious physical danger, like I once, a very long time ago, had the mistaken belief that PTSD was only like within the remit of the military, and firefighters, and people whose vocation or job was hugely traumatic, to my mind anyway. It's just not the case. So even if you haven't had any massive life threatening or like traumatizing situations, as Harry was saying, spiritual warfare is a thing. If you don't think it is, please don't be complacent, because it is a thing. Take that to the bank, I'm telling you right now. Either way, trauma can refer to lots of things, but any situation, thank you, Duad, that that elicits within us an intense or overwhelming a long-lasting sense of fear. And fear, you know, love casts out fear, and perfect love, when you're on the ball, casts out fear perfectly. But it's not always possible to catch it. So it causes long-lasting fear, or sense of fear even, anxiety and or stress. And emotional and psychological and spiritual trauma is something that, like, sadly, a lot of us, all of us, I would say, go through at some stage. And if it's left unrecognised or unresolved in any way, it can manifest itself in ways that take you by surprise, I guess, that you wouldn't associate, that you don't even realise that the cause is this unresolved trauma, such as like negative thoughts, negative cognitive manifestations, and behavioural. You can behave in ways, or, you know, it can even manifest physiologically, i.e. I've been ill for about a month, or I felt ill, and I have had symptoms. Because eventually your body starts to jump up and down in front of you and wave flags and try and tell you something's not right, something's not right. So, I'm going to give you some signs. Hi Andrew, hi everybody. I'm going to give you some signs, and if you identify with any of them or none of them, but the last one, then we're all in it together. Buckle up, kiddos. So, number one, and these aren't in any particular order, just take it as my brain working through stuff. So, number one, like I say, this is not in the order in which they are of importance. Unhealthy or toxic relationships, and this, I mean, mostly romantic, but it doesn't have to be. And whilst for other people these are often, you know, pretty simple to spot, you're just like, oh yeah, there's one. When our feelings are clouding our own judgment, you know, and we rack up emotional baggage as the result of the traumas, the slight traumas. You know, I've spoken before about the small self that loves, and that small self has the ego, like zero defences really. It's like a 6-year-old child, no savvy, no worldly, weary, wise ways. Just loves and wants to be loved, and just throws all of its toys out of the pram. And yep, so there we go. Number one is that. And as a result of those relationships, hi Marks, I mean, good day, good night, whatever it is for you, it can become difficult for us, and I say us because we're in it together, allegedly, and probably because I'm seeking meaning and connection in the world. Stop joking, Kate. All right, that's not a joke. I mean, shush, Kate. Okay, it can cause us to have difficulty connecting in a meaningful and emotionally intimate way with others, and an honest way, because we're often trying to put a brave face on and, you know, put our game face on and smile through the pain and yada, yada, yada. So that's number one. Secondly, number two, you've suffered a significant loss. Here I am. Yeah, another reason for psychological, emotional, spiritual trauma is recent, or not so recent, but unresolved or unprocessed loss, significant loss in your life. And people don't know how to deal with grief. Grief is horrific. Like, even though the Bible tells us we don't mourn, grief is very real. Like, it has clearly defined stages. And what's happened with me over the past year or so, I confidently say, is that before I've had the chance to deal with one death, another one has come along, and then another one has come along, and then sometimes two in one weekend that happened. And there's like the trauma also of like survivor's guilt, even though these deaths aren't associated with each other. Only like I'm the connecting factor, if you see what I mean. Some of these people didn't know each other, didn't love each other, didn't get a chance to, either way. Unresolved loss and trauma and grieving. And if we don't ever get to deal or resolve or come full circle, acceptance even, this can lead us to become more detached from other people. Thank you, Elle. And that's never a good thing for us, or it isn't for me. It just isn't for me. But I do it. Or I focus, only on a few people. And then I drive them mental. And then they just... Well, let's not get into my shizzle at the moment. It can make it difficult to sleep. It can make it difficult to concentrate. To think clearly, to articulate ourselves clearly. We may find that we lash out, that we know I'm not budge, that we lash out, that we break down over seemingly like insignificant to other people reasons. If we can even, through the wreckage of the burning bridges that we were standing on when we set fire to them, yeah, we may find a reason in the ashes. We may not know. It will stem. I'm going to come on to triggers anyway. Triggers, everyone, number 3. Even if you feel, and this is certainly true for me, even if you feel that you've worked really hard on yourself and that you'd come to some like a closure around something, and you're a big girl / boy, whatever, you've done that, you've been there, you've got the t-shirt, you're just down with those issues. The unresolved trauma that can still lie at the heart of it, or the thing that you felt that you dealt with, it can still linger in your subconscious, which is just a jungle, and it can form triggers. And triggers are provocative, I think that's the best word, provocative phrases, situations, people, feelings, images, just any like sensory input that starts off a chain reaction before you even know it. For me, when I feel hurt, sometimes I'm only aware of the hurt afterwards because the anger just jumps in to save me, as it were. We're coming on to that. That is the last one for this. But yeah, it jumps in and I feel righteously indignant, and therefore I'm there with the matches setting fire to the bridges. And then I'm like, oh, okay, how do I get home now? Either way. So these triggers, when you feel fresh and God, we're coming to it, babes. Chill out, hold that thought. The triggering thing, so the feelings of being triggered, that you may or may not associate them with any traumatic event. If they manifest themselves, they're an indicator. They're a strong indicator that something, is blocking your path towards balance and sanity. And when I say sanity, I mean like in terms of the actual word. To be sane at its root means to be whole. And if we have Jesus, we are whole. And fear causes us to just step outside of faith ever so slightly, because God has promised, it'd be good enough if he just said it, but he's doubled down. He wants us to be like, he's made promises. And like if if you can't trust, if you find yourself distrusting that, I'm not casting aspersions because this chick, but yeah, it's a spiral, because the less you're able to trust that God, Romans 8:28 and Jeremiah 29:11 and Isaiah, just so many, Corinthians, then you feel less love because you feel more afraid, and fear is just a fudger, if you'll excuse my pretend French. Either way, it blocks you from feeling well balanced and happy, or maybe the joy, as in the fruit of the Spirit, is still there, but you can't connect to it. So you may have unexplained symptoms, unexplained schematic and somatic symptoms, and these are our mind's way of telling us, screaming at us, jumping up and down, doing a little dance, flashing lights, big 17-story illuminated carpeted foyer signs, that whilst we may think everything's okay, actually just before everything falls down, we are still harbouring wounds. That's the best way to put them. If they can never heal, thank you so much, if they can never, they can scar over, but physical scars leave you quite numb at the point, at the sight of the scar. If they can't heal over because they're always being razor bladed open, you can just imagine that in itself causes more trauma. It just compounds the whole shizzle show. So anyway, if you have had any of these so far, physical symptoms as well, migraines, tension, aches, insomnia, fatigue, she says problems concentrating, low energy, low mood, depressive symptoms. It may well be that that a doctor is not the one. It's Jesus, clearly, but talking about it, these are physiological at their starting point. And all of the symptoms I just mentioned are common in people who present with PTSD. Now I'm on to the fifth. These are signs of trauma, if anyone's just joined. You struggle with emotional intimacy. There you go, I said it, and what? There's me. I just felt a moment of intimacy or discomfort, so I joked my way out, because that's what I do. Headbutt my way in, joke my way out. Either way, do you occasionally or always find it difficult to truly open up? Jordan, you're in for a blinder once you rewind as well. Do you ever find it difficult to open up? Or do you ever think, people are just too busy, why do I want to bring people down? Oh no, what if they really knew me and then they didn't like me anymore? What if they knew that on the outside I seem alright, but on the inside I am just a hot mess of this? What about that? Either way, maybe you, even with close friends, alright Jimmy, do you struggle to maintain close long-term relationships? Or do you feel uncomfortable with vulnerability, uncomfortable exposing? That's my mistake. My notes say expressing. That's Freudian. Expressing or exposing your true feelings. Oh my gosh. So this fear of emotional vulnerability and emotional intimacy, bud, I'm on it with you, kid. They can also stem from previous traumatic experience. And like I say, it doesn't mean you've been in a war zone. Well, spiritually you are in one now. So trauma has the power, such power, to impact not only how we feel about ourselves, and this is like pretty key, but it's also how we think about, feel about, relate to, interpret other people. I just felt a wave of ugh, people. So not you people, just those idiots. Oh, shizzle sticks. So yeah, how we relate to other people is pretty important in how we deal with trauma, because we can just get into a cycle of needing, even though that may be detestable, like needing reassurance that we can't get, because we interpret everything incorrectly, or lots of things incorrectly. We may become triggered by a rejection that isn't a rejection. It's just someone's just tired / an idiot / not a trained professional, you know. And then we take it as a new hurt and a new cut on the it hasn't even scabbed over yet, people, let's be honest. So 2 more to go. Even if you don't identify with the rest of it, the last one, I promise you. So penultimately, here we go. Feelings of depression. And you may or may not be aware that there is a stark difference between feeling depressed and being depressed. There's a difference between depression and clinical depression, as it were. I mean, there are certain situations and circumstances, following the death of somebody you love, or those kind of things, major surgery, illness, a massive event, where it is absolutely perfectly normal to feel low, to feel depressed, because your body, or your mind rather, just seeks to shut down all external stimuli in order to regroup and be able to just function sometimes. But if you feel yourself slipping in or feeling depressed, and you can recognise that there's some traumatic event in your past, then it may be related to that, and it may be, your mind's way of telling you that something's not right. That's often the case with physical symptoms, and depression is a physical as well as a physiological and emotional and spiritual and psychological condition. So even if Freshing Floor knows what's coming, even if you are thinking, okay, what are you bunnying about, babes? Even if you're thinking that, even if you're not from the East End, hold on. This last one, if you don't relate to it, maybe one of your coping mechanisms is denial. Coping mechanisms, everyone, don't you just love them? Don't they just keep life interested and dramatic and irritating? And get on with it, Kay. I don't want to break it to you, I feel bad. Any unhealthy coping mechanisms for your personal problems, or the problems you have created with your own coping mechanisms, more correctly or more likely, are, I would say, a definitive sign that you are still in the process, or attempting, or about to, balance some trauma, some unusual or unresolved or forgotten, or just trauma. So, coping mechanisms. Don't get any ideas. Stick with your own ones. We've all got enough problems. Gambling, pornography, overspending, overeating, alcoholism, substance misuse or abuse, whatever. Withdrawing yourself from loved ones, withdrawing yourself from society, withdrawing yourself from prayer, meditation, fasting, going to church, whatever it is, self-harming. Oh, that's a brilliant one. Oh, there's so many ways. When I say brilliant, I don't mean brilliant. Maybe I'm giving away too much here. But yeah, people can stop eating, stop taking care of themselves. These can all be coping mechanisms. And often we turn to these unhealthy, problematic, pain in the backside coping mechanisms when we don't or can't, when we don't want to acknowledge reality, and when we don't know how to process it, even if we did want to jump out of denial and into real life, because it's just so fun. And these problematic coping mechanisms, I'm veering away from my notes now because I just feel it bubbling up. These, I don't think they should be called coping mechanisms, because what they do in actual, once they become unhealthy, I mean, initially, when you're a child, it may have worked a blinder. You know, things all started feeling a bit uncertain and powerless and scary or unfair. It's a brilliant one when you're a kid. It's not fair. Yeah, and withdrawing yourself, or not talking to people, or masking it, or gambling as a child. Maybe you threw coins up against the wall. I don't know. Loads of masturbation. Whatever you want. Whatever it was that worked, same way with drugs, same way with alcohol, same way with overeating, same way with undereating, same way with cutting yourself, same way with, being a problem child, as it were. I hate that term. You know, causing unnecessary bullying other children, become like all of the ways in which worked. They did work. Let's not pretend they didn't help us initially. But once they serve their purpose and they become, you know, I mean, in adult terms, once we rely on them and not on God's promises, we're fucked. Excuse my French, if you don't mind. That just slipped out. And what happens is, because we're traumatised, because we've got this massive open wound where our heart used to be, let's all just take it down a notch on the dramatic front, okay? Yeah, we've got this open wound, and it's being like paper cutted out of it, like death by 1,000, you know, cuts, but you can add an N in to that word if you know what I mean. Either way, and cuts, obviously. The coping mechanisms that once served us as children, because it is the small child inside us that is running this ship, they cause the problems that we then react to with more coping mechanisms. So if your mechanism is withdrawing and shutting down, imagine it this way: if I decide to shut down, people around me are going to notice a difference, because I'm quite gregarious usually, quite outgoing, like a little chit chat. If I all of a sudden go radio silent and, you know, moody and whatever it is, if they're in any way empathetic, like people who have empathy, we have even if I don't know someone very well, I'll create, without knowing it really, a baseline of how their behaviour is. And when they deviate from that, I find myself saying, "You all right? Everything all right? How are you doing? What's happening with you?" And they go, "I'm all right. I'm doing okay, thank you." And I'm like, "Oh, good, okay." And then I just wait for a little spaz. So, yeah, so if I did that, people around me become hurt pretty quickly, because they can wrongly assume, if they've got unresolved trauma, that it's something to do with them, that they've upset me, that they've done something wrong. And then, because of that, I keep ignoring them, I keep shutting down, I keep just focusing on my own, you know, "Oh no, it's all terrible." They become more hurt. By the time I speak to them now, in my mind, they may not have even noticed, because obviously they didn't even miss me. That sort of shiz. That was the exact voice that goes on in my head, by the way. I've caused the problem. Now when I do speak to them, whereas before they wanted to give me a hug and make sure I'm all right, now they're thinking, "Who does she think she is? This witch. She just put me through all this drama." For no reason that they know of. So coping mechanisms, unhealthy ones, are just so tiring, so exhausting, that I couldn't possibly tell you. Like, I'm amazed, quite frankly, that I'm able to stand. Like, you know, the Bible verse that says, and finally we're just able to say the armour of God stuff. I'm like, far less stuff than this in the past has brought me, like, I'd say on my knees, but not even in a God, you know, like it just broken. And that's the thing with grief, like that is the thing with losing people. Because when I said at the top of the video that this time last year I had everything I wanted and all the things I didn't know I needed, none of them were things. All the things I didn't know I needed weren't things at all. And that's the biblical thing of, you know, like give up your possessions and all, like it doesn't mean anything without, oh, here we go. Hold that thought, anyone. I'm not doing it. My mascara is not waterproof. I'm not doing it. Right. Without love, you can't hope to fulfill what Jesus wants for your life. You can't do it. Have a go at me. I don't care. Come at me in the comment section. You can't do it. You won't do it. You'll fail and you'll have to kneel there on Judgment Day explaining, like, why. And can you imagine? You'll be going, well, they did say this to me and therefore really upset. And then, without love, you are nothing. And when I say you, I mean me. I mean us. I mean we. Just nothing. All the things, the stuff, the material stuff, all of it is meaningless unless we can use it to love other people. Money is not the root of it, like the love of it, yeah, sure. But only the idolization, you know what I mean? Like putting it in the place where Jesus should be. And I feel quite strongly that if you, all of you, I don't know, if you don't hear it, well, maybe I'm fudging you right up because you've heard it now. So, like, you can't say to God, well, I didn't know. So I just messed up your program, sorry. More than 150,000 people die every 24 hours. I'm going to start singing a Christmas carol in a minute. It is all very cheerful, you're right. But it's a fact, and it's been a fact forever. And whether or not they're saved, you may not know. You may not know if you're going to see them again. You may not know if you're going to see your family again in real, like people who live next door to you. Because I'm telling you, with a certainty that is like makes my blood run cold, it won't. Maybe for you, maybe you're so blessed. Like, I don't know. Maybe you haven't lost people this past year or the year before or the year before. When I was a kid, it was like 1 every 5 years. It was nothing. Not nothing, but you had a long run up to it. You had a long, like, get out afterwards, as in processing it and stuff. Thank you. But yeah, they're just gone. You're never going to be able... Anyway, hold up. They're just gone. And that's that.